Okay, Hawks. So our first project of the construction piece and building trades is going to be a gauge block. The gauge block is going to be just a simple project that kind of incorporates the use of some of our tools, including the miter saw, the table saw, a couple different types of blades, including just a regular cross blade, and then we have what we call a dado blade, and then obviously reading measurements and understanding blueprints and reading. So in order to kind of get to the production side of it, we want you guys to start with our Fusion software, and you guys are going to actually create blueprints for what you're going to cut. So before every physical production piece, when you go out into the lab, you're going to be doing a Fusion drawing, a modeling technique. We sketch first with two-dimensional line weights, and then we turn around and add volume to those line types to create an actual model, kind of like a clay sculpting type of deal. And then you're going to take those dimensions and your familiarity with that block, and you're going to work out in the Woods lab to create the physical asset. Okay, so we're always going to start with the Fusion piece first, and we'll start by going to our basic, just create a new project. Now, Mr. Kraus and I have probably went through your settings with you regarding your units of measurements from millimeters and centimeters to inches and feet. Also setting up an XYZ plane, which me and him have or will discuss at a prior time. So here's how we'll start this off. So the first thing you're going to do in your Fusion software is this little green button up here, create a sketch. So you can click on this guy. There's always multiple ways to get to each different type of tool. This is just one way to do it. For you guys that are adventurous, you can always check out different ways to get to the same end result of creating a sketch. So you can always kind of hover over the tools that we have up here in the menu bar, and it will kind of give you a little display on what other ways that you can do the same type of tool. Okay, so here we go. We're going to click on the little green button. We get this. This is what I talked about, Mr. Kraus and I, talking about X, Y, and Z. As an isometric, we always talked about moving our front views to the left. So for my classes, we're just going to click on this front plane, and that's going to be our front view. You always have to determine a front view before you do anything else. So there we go. So now we're in a 2D format. You've got a bunch of tools up here, geometry stuff. Kind of hover over them, get familiar with them, right? But what we're going to use is this little fish hook, the line tool, and we're going to start with that guy. And we're just going to always start at 0, 0. And if you know what the origin is, it's obviously where X and Y come in contact with each other. Fusion makes it easy by having a little dot right there, so we're just going to click to start it right there. If we decide not to start it there, before we model, we'd have to actually move our geometry to the center spot to lock it in. So we're kind of drawing in space right now. So pretend like you're in outer space, and we're just drawing in space, right? Okay, so the easiest thing to do, and we want to do the least amount of geometric lines as possible, so we're going to just shape it. So I have a saying, shape it, okay, constrain it, and then model it, okay? So we're just going to go, and we're going to draw a little 2x4, and we don't even care what the sizes are, all right? So now I've got all these. As you see, we've got one black line and 3 different blue lines. The black lines are good. Blue lines need attention. Then we'll get to that in a second. Okay. Now, again, up here, again, Mr. Kraus and I have probably talked about constraints. Your constraints are all the things in red. So after you do a geometric shape of some sort, you're going to go to these guys. And again, we'll go over it. We're going to take the horizontal vertical one. We'll make this guy vertical. And now we have 2 black lines. So now we're halfway there to being good. Okay. Now, what the object is probably needing is what? So think about your mind what you're probably needing information-wise to turn these blue lines into black. So I'll give you a second to think about what other piece of information this thing needs. Okay, all right, so we've got location. We've started that thing on 0, 0, so we're in space. We've locked it into a certain spot. It's liking the 2 lines that are attached to 0, 0. It's not liking the other lines, okay? It needs more information to turn them black. So the information that we're going to add to it is dimensioning, right? Sizes and so forth. So Mr. Kraus and I have decided that we're going to start with a basic 2x4, and we're going to give each of you a certain amount of wood, okay? Probably greater than 13 inches, and you guys are going to cut this thing down to a 13-inch 2x4. So what I would do in Fusion is go to here to my sketch dimensioning, or D on your keyboard, as you guys can see in the menu, and let's give the length 13 inches, right? So all you got to do is just kind of hover and click and release on one of the geometries. So I've clicked and release. It automatically attaches the dimension to it. Just like move your mouse wherever you want to place the dimension for right now. Just click it and release, and it's going to place it right there, okay? Now, as you can see, I'm in inches. If you're in millimeters, we need to change that up, okay? So Again, we asked for 13 inches, agreed? So just type in the number 13, hit the enter button, and now it's given that thing a dimension, okay? Now it's still blue, okay? It's still blue, but it's also given that third line a black aspect. So now we're 3 out of 4 to the good guys, all right? We need to add one more thing to make sure we lock this line in place in outer space. So the one thing obviously we could do, if we've determined a front view on our 2x4, we're gonna lay it down like the bottom plate of a wall in a stud wall. So the height is gonna be what? Okay, all right, so if you've thought about it, if we've laid it flat like the bottom plate of a stud wall, we're gonna make the height of this 2x4 2, okay? We're gonna type in 2, hit enter, and as you guys can see, all lines are black. We call that constrained. So before we model, before we add volume, you've gotta have your geometry black, and that's a go-to. All right, so right now, again, 13 by 2, and we're doing it to the 2x4, all right? So at this point, we are now going to decide, hey, we want to add some volume to it. We've got all black lines, we're constrained, we're good to go. Up here at the top right is called the finish sketch. So we're just going to click on this because we're done sketching. All right, we got to sketch before you model. So we're going to hit that check mark. And now it's automatically said, okay, now we're in the modeling command, and now we've changed our menu at the top, okay? All right, now, to each his own, take my advice or leave it. But what I always do is I want to see the entire 3 elements of this. I want to see the length, I want to see the height, and I want to see the depth. I always hit the little home button, top left of the cube, and it kind of gives me what we call an isometric view. All right, some people do this, some people don't. It's your option. Okay, now we're going to go to the extrude button. Again, there's the sketch button from the last time. There's the extrude button, top left. Also E on your keyboard for you guys that are keyboard users and not mouse users. Click on that sucker right there. Right. Now it automatically highlights your profiles. We only have one profile, so this is easy, right? And all we got to do is just left click, hold, and drag your arrow in either direction. Either direction. Now if you do go forwards, now you're seeing a negative component, and that represents the direction. If you go naturally backwards, that's a positive movement, so there's a positive 3 or whatever. Hawks, what depth did we use for this particular gauge block? It's 4, okay? Again, we're using a 2x4, and we're cutting at 13 inches. We're gonna type in 4, hit enter, and now it's automatically giving us. Now, I always like centering my models and making them as big as possible. So I'm gonna do a little trick here. Your mouse wheel, we're gonna pretend it's a button, a mouse button, and we're just gonna double click the mouse wheel just like we would a button. And it's gonna automatically center your model, and it's gonna put it as big as possible, which I think is a good look for it, okay? All right, so there we go. Okay, now, we're not quite done. We've started with a 2x4, right, by 13 inches. If you guys recall, we talked about 2 different terms, nominal and actual. You're not gonna walk into Home Depot and say, hey, I need 100, 1.5 by 3.5 by 15 footers. You're not gonna say that. So you're gonna walk in, you're gonna tell them, hey, I need some 2x4s, because that's what they know. So what are 2x4s? Is that dimension nominal or is it an actual size? Okay, so if you remember what we talked about, that would be a nominal size, okay? Now, we talked about adding drywall, which is usually 1/2 inch to the inside of walls and things like that. So when you start adding other materials, your wood is actually a little bit smaller than 4 inches because walls are typically 4 inches standard-wise in width inside a house, interior walls, okay? So in order to get to that 4 inches and you have 1/2 inch drywall, how deep do you think this piece of wood would be? Would it be 4? Okay, so it's actually gonna be 3.5, right? So what we can do here when we wanna go into your changing of geometry sizes or even the model size, this is the model, you have a timeline down here, okay? And the timeline shows what you did at the very beginning, which we always have to do a sketch first. And then after we got that constrained geometry, which was black, now we add that modeling piece, which is a 3D part of it, okay? Again, Fusion is a 3D parametric modeling software. And you gotta have 2Ds before you model it, okay? So if I wanna change that 4 to 3.5, like we just talked about, let's double click on that extrusion piece. That's the action you just did. Just double click on it at your timeline. It brings up the little heads up display, right? And it talks about editing a feature. When we modeled something, we called it a feature, okay? So it tells you the distance, in this case 4. If you were to drag that stuff forward, it would be -4. All right, we went backwards with it when we extruded our model, so it's just positive. Either one's fine, doesn't matter. So we're going to type in 3.5. And again, now think about it. Is the 3.5 going to be actual or a nominal size? Okay, all right, so it's going to be an actual size, right? So once you change that direction, just hit OK, and boom. Now we've got that. Okay, now the same thing applies to the height of your wood members in a interior stud wall as it does to the depth. We changed the depth from 4 nominal to 3.5 actual. What are we going to do with the height? Okay, all right. Now, if we went back into our timeline and double-clicked on extrude, this is talking about the depth. So if we need to change that height, which we did as 2, all right, where do we go to change it? Doesn't look like it's available to us in the modeling. So what did we do when we actually put the 2x4 as our first initial geometry? It was part of the sketch, right? It wasn't part of the modeling. So the way that we're going to change that, let's go to this little white arrow next to the word sketches, because that's what we did at the beginning. Let's expand it, and we have 1 sketch. You should not have more than 1 sketch. The more sketches you have, the more chances of mistakes. So our advice, do your drawings and models in the least number of sketches possible, okay? So we're going to just double click on sketch 1 to make it active. And now it brings back up your initial sketch, okay? So 13 was our length, 2x4 was our nominal. What is our actual? Is it 2? It's actually 1.5, right? Okay, so we're going to go to our 2 dimension. We're going to double click on that 2. And now it gives us an opportunity to change that or modify it to whatever we want. Actual size, if you measure a piece of 2x4 right now, it's going to be 1.5. Boom, it automatically did it. Now here's what's the cool thing. That model that you had shown up earlier, that was, that model piece, it changed as you changed the dimensions here. You just didn't see it. So watch what happens. When I hit finish the sketch, and I hit my little home button for my isometric, okay, it's going to automatically make that the size that we did, right? So we're cool right now. We're 2x4s by 13 inches. Actual size, 13 inches by 1.25. I'm sorry, 1.5. All right, so there you go. So that's how we modify and draw 2D dimensional geometry in Fusion. And it's also how we 3D model it once we have black geometry, and then we modify. I could go in here and modify the size of this thing, the length and the height. I could do it 100 times. I can also modify the depth of that model 15 times. So this is what's cool about it, right? Okay, so once you get it, again, before we save it, let's go ahead and hit our home key to make that thing big and bold for us, right? And then you're going to go up here to a little piece of paper, right, with the little arrow, the cover turned over, and you're going to go to save. And I'm not sure what Mr. Krause is going to do, but for all our intended purposes, we're going to always type in our initials as our first part of our file name. Again, Mr. Krause might do it a different way, so pay attention to what he's got going. I'll just do my initials. You always do yours. And then type in whatever file name we gave it. For this case, let's do gauge block, G-U-A-G-E, right? And we're just going to leave it like that for right now. Okay, we'll come back and modify this as we go. And then location-wise, right, we have also set up, and again, Mr. Krause and I probably did this before with you. You're looking to set up a project name of some sort. I'm just going to hit save right now. I mean, I can take it to a folder if I wanted to. I'd have to look for where I did it. Anyway, I'll put it right now in 24, 25, but I want to make a folder later on that's 25, 26, okay? So there we go, hit save, and there you go. Any questions?